Everybody doing this afternoon? Is it afternoon yet? Officially? Good. All right. Thanks everybody for being here at Zoomtopia. My name's Sean Rowland. I'm actually the head of technology here at Zoom. Recently joined about 2 months ago. Previously 12 years at Cisco Systems, and then was an IT director for 12 years deploying telephony. So up here on our panel, some great individuals. There you go. We'll go old school. G Park, he's actually lead of our phone SE team. And then Ben DeStefan, who's one of our phone architects here at Zoom. And then Tina Kim, who's actually our customer success program manager. So together on the panel, we've got about, you're still wearing that Browns hat? You're killing me, man. So here on the panel, we got probably about 50 years of telephony experience together. And obviously, we're here to talk to you about, why and how you should migrate your phone PBX. So we're going to jump in. We're going to definitely leave some time at the end of the session for Q&A, but we'll keep it light. Hopefully, get some good input from you guys, and hopefully help you out, in this journey. If I can just get some level setting for me here on the crowd, how many of you currently have any type of telephony in the cloud? Good number. Okay, how many of those are Zoom phone? Thank you. Okay, we love early adopters. In terms of on-premise, how many customers in here are call manager today? How many customers are in here via? Skype for Business on-prem? Anything else? ShoreTel, Maito? All right, yeah, cool. So, look, it's the same cast of characters we've had for a long time. The other thing I'll ask is, how many people in here have actually started a voice migration in their career? How many of them have actually finished a voice migration in their career? Good deal. So I think it's kind of no surprise that over the years it's been a little difficult, not just to start but also to finish. Right? There's a lot of things that go into a voice migration. There's a lot of nuances, details, and people and personality. And you take away someone's 10-key device, and it can automatically start a fight. And so we've gone through a lot of those situations here at Zoom. A lot of us have a ton of technology when it comes to that process, and we definitely want to make it as seamless as possible for you to adopt Zoom Phone. So when we think about what it takes to do a migration, for us, it's really around 3 steps, right? First, you're going to evaluate what you've got and where you want to go. You're going to actually integrate into what you have, because I doubt anybody in here has done a flash cut of voice for any number of people, more than 50. And then finally, you're actually going to do the actual migration, right? And that's where a lot of the work comes in, not just from a technical perspective, but also from a people and adoption perspective. And so I think when it comes to evaluate, the first thing we hear here at Zoom, which, just being completely honest, I never heard at any of my previous employers, is, are you guys ready for Zoom Phone, right? Like, are you going to handle the workload that I have, the number of users I have, the features and functionalities that my users are going to require in their day-to-day work? And obviously, Tina's up here. She's rolled out the majority of the customers that we have in CSM. And so, first question I have for you is, currently we're, about 6 months from GA, right? I think anybody who saw the video last month, it was our biggest feature release ever for Zoom Phone, just a short 6 months after GA. But how many customers do we have today?
Currently, we have about 2,400 customers already on the system, varying sizes, industries, verticals. I think that's the beauty of Zoom Phone, is that we're not cookie-cuttered for just one individual, and so that's why we've been able to make such an expansion.
Absolutely. So 2,400 customers, 6 months. I'm not good at math, but it's about 400 a month, right, that we're onboarding for Zoom Phone. We're really excited about it. We've obviously got some great hardware partners out here, and hopefully you're seeing the same type of commitment to the product from them as well. For the entire team here, obviously here at Zoom Phone, no one ever thinks about, I really want to migrate my PBX, right? Like, my voice isn't working, I really need to move to something. It's generally either it's got to solve a business problem, it has to save them money, it has to help them do their business in a better way, more streamlined way. So what is it about Zoom Phone specifically that we're seeing customers that they're actually asking us to look at how to migrate onto Zoom Phone? You can start, Ben.
No, ultimately, a lot of customers are being tasked with a cloud-oriented, a cloud initiative to streamline that communications. Really, when you have that premise-based PBX, that communication in a mobile fashion, as you're becoming more and more mobile in your workforce, becomes more and more challenging. And so with that mobility comes that cloud-oriented connectivity. So that's normally one of the first and foremost initiatives that are driving people to look to migrate.
And from a persona perspective, too, and I think we talked about this kind of in the back, right? We're not looking to do things at Zoom the way that they've always been done, right? So persona is a big thing for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that just understanding your workforce environment, piggybacking off of what Ben said, I mean, we've got a lot of remote employees. They're not necessarily on the standard desk using a hard phone. They may be out selling out to the customers and building those strong relationships. I think foundationally, Zoom has always had strong audio architecture just within our video platform. We wanted to go ahead and bring that experience to the customer base, and that's driven a lot of the buzz and the drive and the early adoption to our platform.
Perfect. Yeah, and we obviously consistently see customers looking at, what's my on-premise today, what can't I live without, and we really want to distill that down, as you guys evaluate who you're going to move or why you're going to move them, what are the features you actually use, right? We definitely don't want to just go out there and deliver 100% of all the PBX features are out of there, so what's the 80-20 rule that we can start, the quickest with to get you rolling and think about that migration? Ben, we talked about this in the back, right? From an on-premises perspective, something we consistently hear at Zoom, but what's one of the long-held beliefs, from on-premises customers that you hear around, just connecting to the cloud and Zoom Phone in general?
Sure, and the audio concerns are generally the top of that list, right? You're taking an audio stream. People have had challenges with the audio stream over their course of migrations in the past, just on-premise, and having that connect efficiently, even on-premise. So now they're looking at and evaluating taking that to the cloud, and that's ultimately a big concern for them. And as Tina mentioned, we leverage our audio technology and our audio capabilities from our video platform, and that's how we can help overcome some of those concerns, because we've shown that we've already been able to do it in our video platform, and a large portion of our customers are leveraging that VoIP audio on that video platform. So leveraging that technology really helps streamline that communication.
Perfect. And G, I know, we talked about the migration process itself and what's involved with that, but when you first start thinking about a migration, what are the first steps from a customer perspective that you ask them about, either in terms of, discovery or current environment or, devices in play, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about discovery, right? Having that communication and having that partnership with the customer, learning the environment, how many egress points there are, how many voice gateways there are, what locations there are, what kind of businesses you're supporting is a very key factor when assessing the migration path and the strategy behind it, right? The solution doesn't just come. It's something that we have to develop with you as a customer, with the help of Zoom Phone architects as well as Zoom Phone SEs. We will strategize on how we get from point A to point B, right? And to me, it's really about communication, right? Having that communication, solid communication with CSMs, support from that get-go is going to get you to that utopia state, right?
Right. And I think everybody in here, we kind of talked about it, again, from an integration phase. We know at Zoom that we're going to have to integrate with what you've got on-prem, right? Like, it's just going to have to be a process. And so, Ben, when we talk about the different integration points, either from a dial plan consistency or even maybe bring your own carrier, what are the type of options and deployment models that we've been looking at from the Zoom Phone perspective to deploy?
Absolutely, and having the ties in between the two disparate PBXs are really where that bring your own carrier and that hybrid builds upon. So bring your own carrier, which allows you to leverage your existing PSTN connectivity and tie it into the Zoom Phone infrastructure. Allows to pull individual users, really helps with that migration story, gives you a lot of options where you can have groups of people identified and leveraged over on be able to be programmed on the Zoom Phone side. Tying that a little bit further with the hybrid deployment allows that integration of the dial plan, so you can have seamless communication in between those disparate PBXs. And one of the great things about that is going on some of the bring your own carrier models, it leverages the same architecture, so you already have that connection established.
Perfect. Yep. And obviously, we talked about the audio codec, being from the ground up, the same type of codec, Opus quality that we're doing, delivering in meetings, right? And extending that now into this new workload that is Zoom Phone. So besides that, being a single platform and having the same consistent architecture behind all of it, what are some of the other integration points that we have with Zoom Phone that we're bringing to market, that we're seeing our customers adopt?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of customers are looking to leverage some of their cloud contact center type integrations, for example. So when you have some of those integrations, they're looking to leverage the existing setup for that. So they have also expressed interest in expanding that out into the Zoom rooms as well. So leveraging the Zoom Phone components within that Zoom room really aids in having that single device in that room to facilitate the communication needs.
I'd also like to call out the Salesforce integration. We understand that your workforce, they're going to go ahead and dial for dollars, and so we wanted to go ahead and make it seamless and easy and all those activities to be properly tracked. Everybody else out there in the market is doing it, so we want to make sure that we provide that consistency on our platform as well.
Perfect. Yeah. And how many people out here have used Zoom Phone before? Perfect. So, obviously too, right, from an integration perspective, the fact that we can allow your customers to move throughout their day, right, and the different types of modalities from starting in chat to escalating to voice to going to a point-to-point meeting, then to a multi-point meeting, and then back to voice, leaving their desk and having the phone call transition, like those are all critical components for us. I think fixed mobile convergence has been a promise of the industry for quite a while, and we're really looking at delivering that model. In terms of the actual migration, what are the first steps from a technical perspective that we're going to take when someone they've looked at it, they understand there's this 80-20 rule. I've got 80% of my users. I'm going to have this amount of users on soft phone. I'm going to have this amount of users that are still on hard devices. I'm going to have X amount of users that are still going to be analog. Here's my special use cases, whether it's elevator phone, PLAR, ring down, etc., fax machine. What about now that I've identified all those users, how do I actually get them there? Like, what are the first things that we need to do?
Sure. Yeah, and so taking a look at that environment, taking a look at all those groups of individuals and classifying them, they could be based on functionality. There could be a geographic consideration as well. So taking a look at all that detail, all that data allows you to start grouping those individual users, and it allows you to identify the users that you'd like to start with those integrations already in place, allows you to start pulling those users over and taking them logically. So if you have groups of users that need to have a certain subset of features and a certain subset of capabilities, it certainly makes sense to group those over. So as you start having those groups and identifying them, it allows you to take them piece by piece, segment by segment, and with all those communications groups, a lot of times they communicate to one another as well. So there's also the ability to minimize the cross PBX communication.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think that's a big component of it. I would also say that when we look at integrating the different users, right, around dial plan and where people are dialing and the locations they're dialing, we're also deciding geographically which positions are going to be better for bring your own carrier, right? Whether it's a country we don't cover or you just have a better negotiated rate, or a country that you don't want to handle the operational headache of and are happy to consume through Zoom. Being a regulated carrier, we can also provide the dial tone service in those countries. And obviously, we're in a small number of countries today. I think we're targeting 21 by the end of the calendar year, yep, right? So 21 countries by the end of the calendar year. So there will be some more migration options for you there as well. One of the questions I always get, and so we'll just fall on the sword here in the room, is survivability, SRST, et cetera, has always been a big component of PBX in the past. So what are some of the options that we have, or what is our best recommendation for survivability, given that obviously we're a cloud-consumed software as a service?
Yeah, well, one thing that I would actually stress is that you have to be honest with your infrastructure, right? You have to ask yourself, are we cloud ready? Meaning that do you have redundant circuits coming in? If those two redundant circuits ever go down, do you have other backup plans, right? So some of those things, you have to be really honest with your network, your strategy. And in reality of things, there's a couple other things, like you could actually deploy SBCs that might be able to actually register those endpoints as a backup registration to the SBC rather than to the cloud if your internet ever goes down, right? So those kind of things you guys could actually see and migrate in that strategy if you wanted to.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think we were talking in the back too. Obviously, we have customers that maybe 2 circuits isn't enough, right? You can always have a carrier option, whether it's LTE or 3G. I would also look at analog devices that could always be your BAT 911 phone out. Like, hey, I've got an emergency. At least I've got 1 or 2 lines that are down. So, just for us here, as we're looking at continuing to develop the product and what we're delivering, how many of you require fully functional survivability at your sites today and have it deployed? Okay. How many people for mobile is not an option in terms of a survivability option? Okay.
So one thing that I want to stress is that everybody, in most cases, have phones, right? The great thing about Zoom is that your Zoom phone could be taken anywhere with the mobile, right? It's not just about the PC anymore. It's about how do you work from your mobile clients, right? You could travel anywhere in the world, like you're in the office, or if you're actually in a manufacturing, your phone is actually a Zoom phone at the same time, right? So keep that in mind. So this DR is real, right?
Now, obviously, from a deployment perspective, too, if you guys are a Zoom Meetings customer, right, you're already probably going to have SSO or LDAP integration. Users are going to be ingested into our system. So again, single architecture from a provisioning perspective, service provisioning is obviously very simple, right? And so being in the same admin portal, the ability to see the same metrics and MOS scores for calls inside of the same admin portal is all critical for us. So when we look at the end-to-end Zoom portfolio in terms of migrating, it is relatively small lift, right? Once you actually decide who you're going to move, it's literally just deciding what your dial plan needs to look like, and then how you're going to connect to us in the cloud. And so, I think from a pre-sales perspective, I don't know about you guys, but I think we spend the majority of our time on dial plan, because I'd be willing to bet, how many people in here have an E164 dial plan, or no, for sure? Couple lean-ins, yeah. So, I think, dial plan is the one that we spend the most time on when it comes to migrating. Obviously, once you're connected to our cloud and working with one of our session border controller partners, the fact that we can do all the manipulation in that session border controller and egress your network where we need to means that it's a relatively small uplift, not just to trial certain users, but then to start to migrate users relatively quickly over to the platform, and then shrink your existing PBX infrastructure and maintenance costs until eventually you can retire it, right? And I know here at Zoom, we don't have every feature. Okay, if you're on the trading floor and you got an IP turret with 600 lines on a single device, or you've got a 60, line key cam appearance, we're not ready to take that on. So I'm not up here saying that we're ready to take those workloads on, but I'm saying that's a very small portion of your workload. And so what I would ask is, come to the workloads that you think you want us to handle, or the ones that are problematic, and see if we can take that on for you. Tina, from a user perspective and the persona perspective, what are the things that you kind of see synergies between the meetings and the phone client as you're migrating users from a usage perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just identifying your key personas. I mean, we all love executive assistants, but they tend to be the ones that are the most tied to that handheld. I've actually even had a customer that said, are there USBs that you can plug in so it just feels like they have a phone? I'm like, just give them a headset, I think just identifying your audience, who you're trying to, you essentially have to internally sell the solution to your audience there, right? Also empathizing. Obviously, change isn't easy. I feel like I've been in change management for quite some time with customer success. So it's really pivotal for you to be able to empathize with what are the key components that they love and that they are most attached to. I think on a customer success perspective, especially when we're planning training, we don't just go ahead and give you our cookie cutter templates. We want to go ahead and know what are the features that your existing users love about the legacy solution that we marry within Zoom, and what do you think are the extra bells and whistles that would be really key identifiers and create that buzz. I know that Ben mentioned it earlier, but water cooler talk, Zoom going viral, it's very common within the video space, and we're actually finding that within the phone space as well, especially with the enhanced features, how we marry the video experience, but also the call handling, the ease of use. That mobile device, I feel like I'm carrying my little laptop around with me in my back pocket, but if I need to go ahead and answer a call, I don't have to give my personal number out. I don't have to forward it to my personal number. Zoom phone is identified easily from my mobile device. But unless you know that and you ask those questions, take a little survey, I think that it's really important for you to be able to go ahead and reach out and ask, change is coming, but I want to make it easy for you, empathize for your users, get that survey, get the feedback, and then we at Zoom can partner with you to go ahead and make sure that we present the solution that you believe is going to be the best option to make sure that your organization moves forward.
Yeah, and I think, we talked about, too, the idea of the persona and setting ourselves up for success during this migration, right? I don't know how many people, were on a previous meeting platform before coming to Zoom, or maybe they didn't use VoIP as much, right? But when you do start adopting VoIP, even on the telephone, the laptop is not your best experience, right? And so the last thing we want, too, is people think that they're going to make an awesome video call using their laptop speaker and mic in a room full of open area work desks. Right? And so we kind of talked about, as you work through that persona, let's make sure that we're equipped, right, and we're adapting and understanding that if you are going to use soft phone, that you give people a headset, or that you give them, even a wireless mic or whatever. But setting people up for success with the product and understanding that we can't beat physics, we can't help room noise, we're only as good as the tools that we're working through is important. We've all been in this business. I don't like hearing someone on a Zoom meeting using their laptop mic and speakers. It's just not a great experience, right? Definitely don't want to be on it for an hour-long phone call where I can't see them. In terms of features, in kind of the use case, what do you think, at least from the customers you deployed in, have been some of the most compelling features that you've rolled out?
One thing that I could say is actually elevating the call to a video call. Okay. So meaning that a PSTN caller, mobile caller, it doesn't really matter who you're talking with. As long as you have a Zoom client, you're talking with a Zoom client phone. When you're talking to somebody, you can just hit a button, and all of a sudden, you guys are actually on a video call. And you can communicate with video as well as share content right off the bat. I think that's significant.
And it even extends beyond just Zoom to Zoom type clients to the PSTN. So if you're talking to somebody on a PSTN, a cell phone, for example, from another organization, you can elevate that right into that meeting and pull in other participants to help join, and it makes it really easy to collaborate.
Yeah, and there's another feature that's coming out. I don't know if that was actually presented with Vi yet, but please go to the other session to find out more details about the new features that's coming out with Zoom Phone. I can't say it. I don't think I want to ruin it.
Yeah,
for everybody.
You shouldn't have mentioned it. Now we're all curious.
Yeah. Did G steal yours, Tina?
He did,
Yeah.
and so we'll have a conversation after this. But I think the great use case about elevating to the meeting is, again, the fact that you can content share. But then if you think about it, when you use Zoom Phone, if you conference a call together, you have 3 maximum, right? When you elevate to a meeting as a host, I can go ahead and call in more people, maybe hundreds of people if I chose to, and they would be on PSTN if they chose to do so. But we have the option to also make it so that, again, they could have a virtual experience as needed. That experience also marries not only in the desktop, but on the mobile device. And I love that the most, because if I'm on the go and somebody needs to show me something, they call my Zoom phone, I pick it up, and then we can elevate it to the meeting as well. I think I lost my mic.
Can you throw mines out there?
What's that?
Can I throw mines out there?
Yeah.
We'll let this guy in.
Yeah, so there's mine in the back. So, hey, Ben, one thing I wanted to touch on too, just, obviously there was a lot of Cisco hands up in the thing. As we're talking to customers, we always get the question of, hey, I really want to move Zoom Phone, but I've had these 7900 series for the last 14 years and they're rock solid. So can I use those on our platform, right? So how do we handle the 7900 series phones, and why is that not necessarily an option for us?
Yeah, so with the 7900 series and a lot of the proprietary,
There
yes, that
you
one,
go.
thank you, devices, they have specialized firmware that's loaded on them, and they require certain components really to be able to communicate, receive its configuration, and because of that, that is why they are proprietary and, not able to connect to Zoom at this time. So
Correct.
they, have that proprietary firmware, and that does not support the connectivity.
Perfect. Yeah, and honestly, we could spend a lot of effort, trying to reverse engineer a load that could go on that phone, but just completely upfront, the memory on those phones doesn't support the Cypher suite for TLS 1.2. So, from a security perspective, it is time, unfortunately, to forklift those phones. When we go to customers, from a phone support perspective, what are the phones that we support out there today that we recommend?
Sure. So Polycom, Yealink, audio code, and then there are the 3PCC variety of the Cisco phone, which does not have that proprietary firmware. It is a generic load firmware.
Right, so everything but 7900 series almost, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and ShoreTel, MyTel. Sorry for the one guy. You always have to upgrade your phone every time you upgrade your software. So we're trying to avoid that here at Zoom.
We want to make sure that you guys understand that we want to secure the connection as well as make sure that the real RTP streams are secure in all facets. So the phones that we recommend are something that we work with our partners to develop that tight integration with Zoom phone as well as Zoom meeting platform. So keep that in mind as well. Okay.
And then for the two technical guys, because we kind of talked about the trouble types of devices that are out there, analog always comes up, right? And so from an analog perspective, both as a single analog ATA and also as a high density, what are our options today and kind of where are we going in the future?
Sure. So we do have the lower density analog options available today. So if we do need to hook up that analog device, that audio device, it will enable that connection. As far as moving into the future, that's where enabling that higher density analog is our goal. We certainly recognize in a lot of areas, a lot of organizations have that one area that has that 24-port type device that is connected out there, and so you do need to have that higher density analog, and that's always been a challenge for organizations. If you have done analog in the past, it's always kind of nails on the chalkboard type of experience. It's something that you try to set it up and then you leave it alone because it tends to consume a lot of time. So,
right.
Certainly look forward to enabling that connection on the IP side, making that nice and streamlined and smooth, and supporting that higher density analog.
Perfect. Yeah, and back to kind of the problematic devices again, right? When it comes to fax, we're definitely going to support that on the ATA. We don't have a software fax integration yet. It's definitely something we're looking at and trying to address. It's covered analog, covered dial plan. Let's see, what's the other big question we get a lot of the time? In terms of digit manipulation, so we talked a lot about dial plan integration and how that's going to work in your guys' deployment, right? Obviously, dial plan consistency from a user has to be there, whether you're using site codes, 6-digit codes, etc. Today, what does that digit manipulation integration look like? So what do we rely on to do that, and how do we best recommend to deploy that?
Sure. So with the digit manipulation, dial plans tend to be an art form. People, if you've ever gone through and designed it, it's kind of, spend a fair amount of time on that. So whenever you migrate in between systems, there's certainly an opportunity to refine that and enhance it, just because dial plan that you designed maybe, 5, 8, 10 years ago may not necessarily be applicable to the way that you need to integrate into other systems or run your business today, especially with a more mobile workforce. So it's certainly an opportunity where you can take a look at things, have options to change around. We do have extensions that end up getting assigned. Every system has that, but really, once you are on the Zoom Phone platform, it tends to transition from extension-oriented dialing to a real name-oriented dialing, especially as you start looking at the soft devices. Having that name-oriented dialing being your persona instead of a number or an extension really helps with that streamline. And then it takes the complexity of that dial plan and hides it from your end users, which really helps with that streamlined experience. So there's certainly opportunity to take a look at your dial plans and manipulate them, take a look and see how they can be enhanced. So.
And with our new enhancements with our SAML mapping, if you have all that information on your IDP as your users change or as you make adjustments on your IDP, you're able to go ahead and have those configurations update within the Zoom platform as well. So you can have one source of truth as far as like identifying your users within your IDP, and then have that just automatically pump over the next time they log in via SSL.
Perfect. Yeah, we have about 13 minutes left. I definitely wanted to leave some time for Q&A and make sure we're hitting on everything. So if anybody has any questions out in the audience, we'd be happy to take them now. And if If you're going to throw a dagger, I'll take it first.
I'm just curious about the 2,400 users, or customers that you guys have on the phone.
Yep.
How many of those were first-time Zoom adopters, or were they all video customers?
Yeah, so the question was, of the 2,400 Zoom customers, how many of them were originally Zoom Meetings customers? Is that accurate? Yeah. The majority of them are, and that literally just goes back to us, wanting to make sure that, especially as we launch a new product, right? Typical crossing the chasm discipline, right? Let's start with somebody that we know we're going to have a good chance of success with, who's already a Zoom-friendly customer and is willing to work through us, in kind of that bleeding edge type of deployment. I'll be honest though, we're kind of getting a lot more people now who are coming to us just for phone. Like, hey, I'm in the middle of a conferencing contract. I can't get out of that, but boy, this moves that change contract that I'm on, I'm ready to bail out, right? And I think that's what we're trying to decide is how much do we want to go each of our individual projects as a go-to-market versus selling as a platform and ensuring that people are already adopted a certain component of that. Yeah, great question. Sorry, right here, and then I'll come back to you in the white.
Are you working with your carriers? Sidecars are a big thing in our office, and I know that's in the roadmap.
Yep.
I don't know if you can some sort of timeline for that, but and then traditional EAs we were speaking about them earlier.
Yep.
Making them comfortable. Sidecars are going to be something that are going to make them comfortable.
Perfect.
How is that going to be a part of the roadmap as well?
Yep, yeah, absolutely. So the question was, how do we handle sidecars or key extension modules, going forward, both with hardware vendors and with, the people in the politics portion of receptionists or admin. It's absolutely part of our strategy. For us, it's about getting first from a software perspective, supporting that many digit and line appearances per user, and then secondarily coming back to the hardware vendor and deciding how we want it to look from a UX perspective, so it's as simple as possible. Obviously, Polycom is one of our vendors that we're working with on the VVX line. They're also coming out with a new line of devices that we're going to take a different look at from a key extension module and see what that looks like. The head of PM over at Polycom is actually somebody that I've known for over a decade, and so it's absolutely something that we're pushing on, and you're going to see relatively shortly from us. Absolutely. White shirt, sorry. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect.
You would be able to go ahead and do bulk changes via CSV import into the system. And so we actually have a Zoom Phone administrative session that I'll be hosting later today. Thank you. So feel free to come by and we can go ahead and show you some key tips and tricks and tools that we would want to highlight to administrators so that it's the easiest for you to go ahead and make those maintenance changes as needed. Yeah,
you could do bulk upload if you wanted to, as well as update existing users. Obviously, if you're utilizing SSO, you have the ability to create an attribute that matches that particular department or groups and have that updated automatically for you if you wanted to.
There's somebody
Yep.
behind the podium.
Go over here, sir. Yeah, so any tips about porting? That's a good customer success question. Yeah.
We have a wonderful installer porting team, and so we do have a dedicated team resourced for this. They come, I think between them, like 60 years of experience. And so I would say that our engineering team is working very closely with our carriers to go ahead and leverage APIs wherever we have them available so that you'd be able to port through the web portal that we do have. There are certain project ports when it's a larger number that would have to be done manually, but our porting team is always in communication. So whenever you do submit a porting request, right now I think for the US we're averaging somewhere around 7 days. You can also schedule them, so you just want to make sure that you communicate that to our porting team once you execute. For a project port, if there is an estimated date that we can go ahead and provide to you, just note it's always challenging when the other carrier is the losing carrier, so there is some limitation, but our porting team stays on top of all of the urgencies that we try to have, and as well as many accommodations that we can potentially make. So we do have a dedicated team, so if there are specific questions or hiccups, also your customer success manager who might be involved in it, we can always go ahead and help escalate and let our porting team know that if there is some last minute request, if we're able to go ahead and provide that information and support your initiative. So.
And the beauty of Zoom Phone is that if you think about what the traditional path was, it used to be you have to actually set up users, wait for the porting to happen, and assign the DIDs to a user, whatever that might be. In Zoom Portal, what you can do is upload all the users that you need with the extensions and assign the pending number of the porting numbers, assign to the users ahead of time, so when the port happens, it just works, right?
And they're ready to go.
So the general rule of porting, just to give you, if the port 50 numbers, expect at least 30 days for you to port that number minimum. So usually between 30 and 60 days, you're doing the bar number of ports in terms of that EID. And per country too. So you've got your numbers with a single carrier, like AT&T or BT or Masergy. You're going to fill paperwork for each country, because each country is different. In some countries you need stamps, or actually there's a number. So just be aware of that. All the paperwork is basically your business address, your business stamp, for places like Spain, for example, which I know you got supporting just yet, but
No.
that's a fun country to do. And then you're from there. So, but underneath 50 numbers, usually you will come.
That's where the
Sorry, I recorded with you back when we started. On one instance, it was, oh, your company name is all caps. Exactly.
Yeah.
Any mismatch in information, suite versus SUIT, anything different, they will deny it and set you back because they don't want to lose you. So that is getting your information exact, looking at your bills. A lot of it's on us. A lot of the ports.
I would also have to say, you're absolutely right. When you inherit telephony, nobody puts it in a spreadsheet and says, hey, these numbers are from this carrier. You have a blend and a mixed environment, so that can cause delays. Our team has tools and resources that they try to do to help parse through that, but as much as you can go ahead and have that cleaned up on your side is really beneficial for us to go ahead and just receive and try to push through as well as possible.
Yeah, and the key thing that you should note is having the billing statement and having that information entered exactly the way it's presented will be the key driver of success versus delay.
And one of the other,
On that is that you want to, if you're doing a large port, before you start the porting process, do an audit of your bills, and then request a TID audit from your carrier. Chances are, if you're paying more than $2,000 a month for your telephony, they'll give you all your DIDs. Like, oh, I think I'm missing a couple DIDs, and they'll give you a CSV export of all those DIDs and the routes for them, as well as a nice spreadsheet, and then you can give that to them.
seems like we need a best practice doc on that. All right, we're taking notes. We got it. Yes, here in front, and then I'll get you, sir.
Yeah, I think you mentioned earlier that audio was like the main concern that customers had when looking at phones. If most of those customers were Zoom customers, what's the difference? Where's that concern coming from?
Can you repeat the question in case somebody...
yes, thank you. So the question was, one of the concerns that customers bring to us is audio, and if they're coming from a Zoom environment and the Zoom audio has been great for them, what is the concern? So a lot of the conversations that we've had where audio comes up as a concern is coming from their traditional VoIP administrators, not necessarily the same teams that are experiencing and working with the video conferencing side. So coming from a VoIP perspective, looking at, let's say, G711, G729, those very traditional codecs, and running those across congested infrastructures where they may have had legacy WAN topologies and things of that nature, it sometimes broke down, and they've had a poor experience. They had a lot of headache, kind of like porting, right? Everybody has porting headaches from their past. Just because it was painful in the past doesn't necessarily mean it always has to be painful, and that's ultimately where with the codecs and the components that we're leveraging from the Zoom video side, that it works a lot smoother for them.
Yeah, think about this, guys. If back in 10 years ago or 20 years ago, if you said to somebody, hey, let's do a video call, you would be laughed at, right? Because they don't have the bandwidth. The quality was crap, literally, right? Now the technology has evolved so much, and the compute is there, as well as the pipe. You could have a great experience over the internet, and everybody does, I'm sure everybody does this, FaceTime your significant other, right? It's the same kind of technology that well, it's not the same kind of technology. Similar technology that we're actually doing, right? At the same time, it's flawless because of the technology of the infrastructure that was built for the cloud, right? As well as all the capabilities that you guys want are driven by the mobile-first approach.
And we don't want to sell you unnecessary gear. We don't want you to have to administer unnecessary links, right? But if ultimately it comes down to you want that dedicated, QoS, absolutely we can, peer into our network and provide, dedicated link for that traffic as well. Did you have a question, sir? Call recording, yep.
Yes, we do support call recording, and we recently enabled automatic call recording. So that's been very popular in the vertical for law firms, where you charge by engagements with your clients. We also transcribe them, so there's benefits in regards to notes for that as well.
Back here, and then I'll come up here. Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, so the question is, around China vulnerability and how does that relate to the rest of the availability across the globe. So China is a very unique situation. Eric's gone on record specifically around, what was happening. There was a specific, country regulation that we had to follow specifically for the freemium offer, not necessarily for the corporate offer. And so unfortunately we were caught up, in kind of a blanket wash across. So being that China's, obviously one of the hardest places to get business in and get around, the government firewall from, delivery perspective, we're not going to have that situation in the rest of the country. And Eric and team have already actually after Zoomtopia, he'll be flying out to China on Thursday to meet with the internet board specifically around how we can keep that from happening in the future, and for them to understand that we are a business critical service and not necessarily a freemium consumer service that's going to be used against government regulations. Yeah. Question up here? Yes, sir.
Do you have a success story for a Zoom phone customer that has a large India presence and how that would go?
So Vi probably ran away. So India has been on our release docket for a while. Like we have kind of let's do the hard thing first. So hey, guess what? I'm going to deliver service in India. So today we actually don't, and the reason is we're going through two. Obviously, legal loopholes. One, to provide bring your own carrier inside of India through a customer, and then secondarily to actually provide dedicated service from Zoom in India as a carrier. And so we don't have a reference because we haven't delivered either of those. We're working feverishly against them. As soon as we do, we probably have, of the 2,400 customers, probably at least 200 of them that are waiting to turn up service either as BYOC or directly from Zoom.
So we are actively designing and vetting out the actual design and getting a rubber stamp from DOT for the BYOC, and we're doing it ourselves to get that rubber stamp so we could replicate to the customer and say, hey, this is how you could do it with a carrier, and this is the design we're going to go with because of the fact that we know that it works and we got a rubber stamp on it, that we could actually give you that same experience going forward.
Trust me, as soon as we have a customer reference, it's going to be in the news, so don't worry about it.
There's certainly a lot of people that are looking to have that functionality, which is part of the reason for the two-pronged approach. So it's kind of a race between each of the initiatives to get there. And there's customers that are really looking forward to one or the other, if not both, depending on the circle.
Perfect. We are at time. I know everybody has to get to other sessions. We're going to call it a day. We'll be around here if you want to come up and ask any further questions. But thank you for sticking around and hanging out.